Гаразд, друзі, будемо починати.
So, dear friends, we're going to start, and I hope that we will be able to work without any breaks, both parts, and I think that technically we are ready to go, and we are already online. Once again, greetings. My name is Tsyp'yashchuk. I'm the legal expert of Civis Fortis, and also I'm the moderator of today's meeting of both parts. And with my great pleasure, I'm glad to start our press conference, our first part of the presentation, and we are going to talk about this research during the next hours of work. So let's start with a few technical aspects before we move to the main topic. The first thing is that we have an online session. For those who are here with us in the room, it is not relevant, but you can share it with your colleagues. And those who might be interested, we have both English and Ukrainian version. The second thing is that I do not know whether we have the colleagues who are not from Ukraine.
Interpretation is available simultaneously. Just please use the devices, and you can be on the same page with everyone else, because the major language here is Ukrainian.
And the last thing, if we will hear a red alert, and that might happen, we suggest to consider the security situation. Sure? And we will make the decision considering the situation. Of course, each of you can leave the event at any point, and the closest shelter is the metro station, which is next to the entrance, next to Ukrinform, or otherwise you can ask the guards on the first floor, and they can redirect you to another shelter and to show the way. Today we are working, as I already mentioned, we have two parts. So the first part is a press conference, around 45 minutes, and we hope that we will be on time. That will be the press conference where we'll introduce a few main issues based on the research we have conducted and also the possible solutions, thanks to the speakers we invited today and the ones I will introduce a bit later. And after that, we'll have a 15-minute break. After this break, we return to the round table and we continue discussion, in-depth discussion, where everyone will be able to express their opinion. And we expect that this discussion will last around 1.5 hours, though we will finish around 5 p.m. But maybe if we will need to stay a bit more, we can stay with you for a few more minutes. So that were the technical aspect of these meetings, and let's move to the main topic of this research. First of all, I would like to thank you for finding the time and the bravery to come after a sleepless night with all these red alerts, and we hope that this meeting will be very informative and fruitful for you and will help us to find the positive solutions in these difficult times. So even despite very big efforts, Ukraine doesn't have this system which could have provided the full support of civilians who return from the actual Russian captivity. And even if we imagine the situation that a big number of people has returned to Ukraine, and even if it happens, it's very unlikely that Ukraine is ready to support all of them and is ready to provide the high-level support on each level of rehabilitation, reintegration, and rights protection. Focusing on this problem, the foundation of the civil protection, Civis Fortis, we have conducted the research, which, as far as I understand, you have in your hand, and it is called Civilians After Russian Captivity, State Policy of Ukraine, International Experience, and Milestones. So this research has two parts, the green part and the white part. The green part is the result of analytical work And I'm not going to tell you lots of things about methodology. You can go through it. It's quite classical. We had the field research, we had survey, we have analysis of the legislation, international experience, questionnaire, legal experience, legal practice analysis, and we have conclusions on each of the topics mentioned here. We have 3 parts. The first part is terminology. Today we're not going to focus on it, so let me mention the few main things. So we consider terminology from the perspective of the legal definition. How do we call the people who return from the actual civil captivity? And in this case, we suggest maybe not a very we call them civilian in captivity. Why? You can find it in the research. Once again, we are not diving deep in it. The second one is sensitive captivity. We suggest refusing from terminology exchange because we do not consider it to be human-centric, because we are talking about the people as a kind of fund, material fund. And we forget that these are individuals with human dignity, and therefore we suggest to substitute, to replace it with release from captivity or return from captivity. And from the perspective of sensitive terminology, we suggest to replace victim with more neutral term affected. The second part is the main part of our research. You can see the list of the topics we covered in it. So there is a range of legal guarantees, which on the one hand are the state tells us that it will provide, but on the level of the implementation of these legislation, we have issues, that is social, medical support, housing, and issuing documents, recognizing the status of the people, and the last chapter, that is international experience. That are the fundamental things related to the implementation of the approach based on human rights as a cross-cutting, as an integrated approach to the state policy. It's very natural that today we will not be able to cover all these issues in depth, even though we would like to do so, but it would have required a few days, and we can continue talking about it for hours. But today we suggest to cover the 3 main key things. And we're not saying that they are the only important ones. The rest of the issues are also important. The rest of our team, we were really thinking very hard what are the things we would like to talk about. And we decided to talk about more comprehensive things which are related to almost each issue we covered in our research. The first issue is the comprehensive support or case management with the one-stop shop. The thing is that people do not need to go to different websites, rooms, authorities, and to try to find what kind of assistance they can get. But instead, we want to develop the system where the person can get all the information he or she needs, and he or she will be assisted to understand what kind of support and assistance they would like to get. The second issue is related to the people released from captivity, that are the people who return themselves outside of the official releases or returns from captivity. I think that we do not need to be explained why it is a problem, but we're going to find the solutions. How can we manage this problem? The third issue is more kind of long-term issue, rehabilitation. First of all, medical rehabilitation, but also psychosocial and psychological rehabilitation of the people who survived captivity. There are the 3 main topics we are going to cover, both in the first part and during the in-depth discussion. And of course, we will have the questions which are related, but I'm going to be the moderator, and I'm always going to return you to the main 3 topics, and maybe in some I will need to stop you if I see that we are out of the time. And finally, we are moving to who is going to help us in the first part to cover this issue, the first part and the second part. I would like to introduce our speakers for today. First of all, that is Lyudmila Yankina. She is the head of the foundation of Civis Fortis. Then we have Olena Dmytrieva. She is the director of Obolonsky district Center of Social Services in Kyiv, with vast experience of support of the cases of the civilians in captivity. Also, we have Daniil Bulgakov. He is a case manager of the Charity Foundation's fund of Andreyev family, and he is an expert in these cases, unfortunately, due to the fact that he also went through Russian captivity, and he is the person who can tell his own experience he had after he returned. And also we have Ksenia Voznitsina. She's the director of the Center for Mental Health and Rehabilitation for Veterans, Lisova, Polyana. I will mention the people who will be in the second part separately, not to waste our time. So with this, I suggest to start the discussion, and I promise to speak less in the new parts. I almost said everything I needed to, and therefore I pass the floor to Ms. Lyudmila, and we are going to do it this way. In the beginning of each question, I will give Lyudmila the floor, and she will introduce the key findings and solutions. And after this, we are going to discuss it with the experts who are present with us today. And in the end of the day, I hope that we will have the time for your questions and for the answers. So, Lyudmila, the floor is yours. Thank you, dear colleagues, because even despite all the threats, you are with us, and I hope that we will be able to stay here without going to the shelter, but in case we will need to go to the shelter, we will do so. So what is this research about, and what are we... And this is something that is ongoing since 2022 and also since 2014, when the Russian Federation was conducting their occupational activities. They were also kidnapping, abducting people, and there were less of civilians in captivity. But nowadays, more civilians are in captivity, and the number of the people who are now in the Russian captivity and who have returned, it is much bigger. But they abduct more people than return, unfortunately, and therefore we can say that nowadays, according to the assessment and that is confirmed by CRC, and according to the Commissioner on Human Rights, Dmytrieva, there are 892 people which are confirmed by ICRC, but we have more than 900 people according to the Office of the Commissioner on Human Rights. But besides that, we have around 30,000 people that are the people whose location is not confirmed or whose captivity is not confirmed, though there are different evidences of other people that these people are detained and they are illegally detained, and Ukraine is trying to return them. And therefore, we are talking about the people who we managed to return, the people who return through the mutual releases or themselves. And today we have not only Daniil, but also the people who returned from captivity themselves. And we are going to talk about their problems, because there are two different levels of access to administrative services, and people who return alone, it is much harder to get access to get state services, unlike those who return with official, in the framework of the official program. So Maria has already mentioned that there are the key three topics, the most painful ones which we identified for ourselves, and they require intervention of civil NGOs and the state, and in fact we lack a unified system. The key point of our research was to understand whether there is a systematic solution. Spoiler, no we don't. The suggestion is to create systematic suggestion by coordinating all of them, and they will have the mandate to resolve the problem of civilians in captivity who return from captivity. And one of these three topics is preliminary case management or one-stop shop with the principle of case management, and that is something that we can consider from both sides. After that, we will talk about the support for individuals who were released, who left captivity themselves, and then the support of the civilians. So far, we don't have this kind of policy in the state, and we are going to talk about how to form this kind of policy. So the first topic, that we do not have this unified mechanism. We do not have the unified and understandable roadmap for the person who returns, especially the person who returns him or herself. So if we're talking about the person who returns through the exchange procedure, this person has can stay for 21 days. They can stay in the hospital for the medical checkups, and the person who returns him or herself, this service is not available. No official road, no assistance programs, no authority which would coordinate everything. And today, together with our colleagues, we're going to talk about how it should have looked like and how it works in some certain, so to say, manual way, ad hoc format, but in fact, we have the practice which we have to extrapolate. And as a result, considering the fact that we do not have this systematic approach, it is unequal access to support for those people who return themselves. Because as a result, they are the most vulnerable because they cannot confirm that they were in captivity. And of course, a majority of them do not get the document that they were in Russian captivity. Part of them didn't have any kind of legal documents of their detention. And this kind of person cannot confirm that they were in captivity. And as a result, this person cannot get the status of the person who was in captivity, and as a result of this person cannot obtain the state services. Therefore, the solution is to organization of systematic approach, and that is the throughout problem. It can be resolved absolutely depending on the situation, and we have the state authorities who undertake this burden outside of their official mandate. We have the coordination center of the Office of the Prosecutor General, coordination center, that are the authorities whose mandate is not to care about these people after people return from captivity, but they shouldn't have done that, because that is not their mandate. They shouldn't have undertaken this piece of work. We should have had a system instead, and therefore we are saying that there should be the one-stop shop and the corridor, so the road for the civilian after he or she returns from captivity. And we need to define on the level of bylaws which authorities have to be responsible and what is their mandate to implement the one-stop shop authority, and to identify the authority which should have taken care of it. And also our recommendation is to extrapolate the policy of the state solutions which are in charge of the civilians, the support, and that happens on different levels, or immediately after the person returns, or in midterm, so to say, midterm period when the person has returned, for example, half a year ago, but the consequences of captivity are still affecting the life. This person needs housing, pension, status of the person with disability. So there should be someone who has to coordinate the work, and we need to. We consider that there should be Miss Olena Podilitsa, which works in the state authorities, but we are saying that this practice has to be extrapolated in order for it to be massive and not a single case one.
Так, я передаю.
So that he could share his experience about. Hello, everyone. Very important factor here. When you return from the prison, how many years you spend there? Because a person can spend 3 days. And then the person can forget the whole month. That's how strong can be. So there are some quiet cases of return from captivity. For example, we have some people that I met during exchange. People spend 6 to 8 years. They missed so much information, so much news, COVID, the reform of police, all those things passed beyond them. So these people come back to real life and they're just not ready to face the reality. And you all have Dia on your telephones, but when you tell that person you have to download Dia, the person just doesn't understand what that is because they never heard about Dia anytime. So there are so many problems like that. People come back confused. Some people can control their condition, because, especially those that came back through the exchange where they talk to doctors, especially when they meet doctors with empathy. Those doctors can explain things to them, they can spend more time for them, and they show their own example. Case managers or representatives of charitable foundations, we come, for example, on the very first day after we are allowed to see anyone at all, and then we have conversations with them. We do needs assessment, or also we tell them about the reality, what is going on. We also give them a little bit of money so that people could at least go and have some coffee, because if a person comes back after those years of imprisonment and they never even had a chance to eat anything interesting, and so we need to give them a little bit of money so that they could at least buy a coffee. Summer camp, and you really have to explain every little thing for them, and case manager is supposed to do that because that is his job of a case manager. Daniil, thank you very much. It's indeed, you talked about some very important things. Some things may not seem very obvious to us, but not all of us can understand this experience. This is why I would like to ask Olena to share your experience, because I know that you have a center, you have some successful practices, successful experiences of working with those people. Can you talk about the first initial critical days of working with those people? Okay, yes, we work with those people starting from 2024 after the decree 296. The Center of Social Services, which is located territorially in close to Rehabilitation Center, that works in partnership with that center. And I really heard what Daniil just said here, that because the first women which were released from captivity and men, we really had to take them by hand and take them to Tsnap to help them restore their documents. And then we had such problems such as we have to find civil organizations which would provide such help as, help with clothing, because because when they return, it's a very simple, very basic garments that they have. And so we took those people to shopping, and they were able to choose the clothes they wanted to have, and they dressed up. So that was a problem. But people were confused, people were lost, and you really had to take them by hand and go step by step, take them to the store, then take them to the changing room and choose the clothes. We also had many very simple problems, like some people were hurrying them up, and we had to stand for those people. We had to explain to people that we have to be more tolerant, because when we came to Tsnap of administrative center of services in the Obolonsky region, and everything was very smooth. We had no problems with restoration of documents, and we had this also option. Our specialist went to Lisova, Polyana, that's the name of the center, and if documents had to be restored after the trafficking of people, and Daniil went through that. And then, only after that, they started to restore their passports, and this center, Lisova, Polyana, was helping them with documents. What else? We had some cases where with the Office of Prosecutor General. I want to thank them, because there's some people with whom we started to work, with people released from captivity, starting from 2024 and up till this day. We keep up with them. I know some moms there, and kids and grandkids, and those people, they came to the conclusion that if they are with us, they feel safe. And every time they have questions or problems, they come to us, and we provide them with consultation. We support each other. After Lisova, Polyana, now how can I say it? We were able to find places where those people started to live, because they needed a place to live, and so we visited them there, and those were new places because they lost their housing, they lost their homes, entirely occupied. So it was us and OPG. We helped them find new homes in the city of Kyiv. We improved the system a little bit, and we are trying to continue to follow in this direction, work in this direction. Now, the people which are not adapted, some people really need to be taken from point A to point B, and you really need to help those people for months. In some cases, it's a few months. In other cases, it's almost a year, and we have some positive things. People learn to cooperate with us, they learn to use Facebook, they learn to communicate with other people, so that's what we do. Thank you very much, Olena. And your experience proves that this system can really work. And of course, it is not 100% responsibility of any concrete institution. It works when we have this cooperations, when we have different actors. And before I pass the floor to Ksenia, because Ksenia is going to has quite a bit to say, but I want to ask you this. Do you have a vision how this system could possibly work at the state level, at the country level? Well, it seems to me that everything is already described in normative documents, and if a person comes to Center of Administrative Services, especially if it's a person they return from captivity, they inform us, and we support them if they need our support. So we already have a number of laws which describe how these things should work. Thank you very much. And in the end, Ksenia, please, we talk to you about what happens before case management, because we have to initiate this relationship in a certain way. So clearly, So we really have to prepare for that. Please share with us your considerations, your thoughts about this preliminary stage. I would say that we live in the era when we really have to know about trauma and how sensitive people can be, how traumatized they can be. No matter what service we are talking about, psychological, social service, it is almost impossible to provide this support without relevant education and preparation. And people have to be aware, they have to understand that if you are waiting for people either from the front or captivity, we have to prepare how to deal with those people and how to provide them with support and how to forward them. And on this year, 2026, we already have certain positive results, because a few years back even, we had almost no information about how to work with those people. Today, on the other hand, medical personnel, medical staff can provide a proper support to people released from captivity. And it doesn't really matter what type of problem this person has. It can be a hypertension or any other problem, medical problem, social problem. But it's all about communication, how we can communicate our support, with what air. And because these are the things on which the support depends. For example, we have, starting from 2025, educational course for medical specialists that at the demo age, and we have these stories, we have these documents on how to provide the support to people released from captivity. It's a resource center called Lisova, Polyana. It's a very good base for specialists, so that specialists could feel more confident in working with our clients. And they have an educational course on communication with this category of people. And you can find that course through a DIA application. So this is a primary, basic level, and we all have to be aware of those things before a specialized service is going to be phased in. A doctor or medical nurse or any case managers who are going to work with those people. So trauma-sensitive communication is very important. It's a very important step for a person to feel that their dignity is protected, so that those people don't get traumatized additionally. So this is my additional message. So this educational course through the application. Okay, we all understand that people that return from captivity, those people, let's sum up, those people lived through hell. They had terrible experiences. In most cases, it's maybe different types of torture, of poor treatment. And what I hear from your experiences, from people's experience, we need to prepare this approach not based on the status, but based on our understanding that a person most likely lived through hell, through terrible experience. And this approach has to be person-centered, and the policy has to be based on this. And this brings us to the second issue, which explains the difference in the approach from we begin with the status and then to people-centered approach. Let's support first, and then we will understand next, because in the first place we want to save this person. And the most important problem here, and Lyudmila talked about this already, and I was saying about this, when a person is released on its own due to different circumstances, I would ask Lyudmila to briefly share the results of our study, and then we will ask Daniil, who's going to share his experience. Thank you, Maria. I would just want to take all of you back to that point when a person crosses the border, Ukrainian border. What should be in the package of social support? Who is going to support that person and how that person got on the territory of Ukraine? Officially, or it has to be a doctor, social worker, psychologist, and representatives of TSNAP, administrative services, that provides administrative services to the public, and the person representative who works in these windows, and it has to be a social worker who opens the door before all those institutions that the person has to go through, and other people that another very vulnerable, sensitive topic. And there are no proofs that a person was in the captivity, and it's a key factor to the access to administrative services. Our study indicates that a third of released persons could not prove their status due to the lack of proofs. And there are three routes that they come back to Ukraine. Mostly it's through Belarus or countries of European Union. So through western regions of Ukraine. And we say that without acknowledgement by commission of this person as a person who lived through captivity, it's very hard for those people to prove their status, and they cannot receive, and they cannot access state services, such as people who lived through that traumatic experience and who deserve a special treatment and special attitude. We suggest to simplify this procedure. Also evidence-based, the evidence they have to present, because very often the expectations are too high by commissions, so separate protocols have to be simplified. And we also have to think about the algorithm when a person can receive this status without sufficient evidence. So we are emphasizing that the absence of status for such person is a very painful thing, which the person cannot access state services. Now, as for the issue of coming back to the country, yes, indeed, our study shows that there are three ways. The most important way is the occupation from Kherson region, Kharkiv region. In 2022, many people were released from a torture places of torture, and local places of torture in villages. They would, keep the citizens in the basements. And other people who were released from captivity. I was lucky to be in transition period. People also spent the whole term.
And also people who were requested some big bribes, and therefore they took everything they could from these people and threw away. Typically, these people are released on the territory of the Russian Federation, and they return through the European countries or through the Republic of Belarus. It all depends on the international passport, because the Republic of Belarus will not let you go to the territory of Europe. So if you go my way through the Republic of Belarus, you get here through the Mani checkpoint, and typically the relatives, case managers come to these kind of people, and nobody comes to the people who come through the checkpoint. So only State Security Service comes to check on you. And they might say, like, okay, no issues with you, you're free. And then one thinks, okay, where can I go? Because nobody tells you about statuses, document, or whatever. Or they can bring you to Kovala city, and the procedure is more or less the same. You're left on your own, and you need to find your way. So this problem leads to the situation, and that can be also a kind of state gap. That when one returns from captivity, having the evidences which could have had an impact on the commission and can tell what was happening with them, they can just throw away this document on the way because they are afraid that they will be punished here. My colleague was helping one woman to get back from the territory of the occupiers, and she had lots of documents which could have confirmed that the person was there. But because she was afraid that there will be issues here on this side because of these documents were left on the border with the Belarus in the garbage, and this person has no way to confirm she was there. And also the people who left to Europe after captivity, and they are trying to live there. They are trying to apply documents through the e-apps where they can apply to the commission. They rarely try to return because the same issue everyone has here when returning from the captivity, that is because they say, occupiers say, state security service will arrest you, we will get a punishment so severe that this time something that is happening to you is nothing. And when day after day for years you're told the same things and you're in shock, that is something that remains in your memory. And people are conscious, they have no mental issues. It will not affect you. People will be scared. People will still be afraid when they see law enforcement and they do not know what will happen next to them. Thank you, Daniil, that you have shared your experience, considering the fact that we have, over the time, I think that we will start the third round, but in the framework of the last remark, you can add here. So I would like to recap that on the one hand, it seems like there is legislative basis and there is kind of the institutions which have to support people who leave captivity, but due to bureaucratic formal issues, due to negative practice with possible prosecution of the people who were in the captivity or under control of the Russian Federation, people, in fact, they do not have information when entering Ukraine. I'm talking about those who return themselves. Quite often they do not have information on where they can get support. They can be afraid. They might not be willing to provoke some negative consequences, even that might not be realistic. Daniil has explained why it works this way, why these kind of thoughts might appear. And the third thing is that we do not have the support system which would have supported people who says that she or he could have undergone this kind of experience of the severe experiences, even if we're talking about the status of the civilian in captivity. So that is a certain topic. So why doesn't this rehabilitation system doesn't work? Maybe we lack some entrance record and maybe we need the state to say it. And with this, I'm passing the floor to Lyudmila, that is rehabilitation of civilians as a system of the state policy or support. Yes, we are talking about the fact that indeed there is some support and something that Lisova, Polyana is providing, and Ms. Ksenia will share experience, but there is no system of support. And we say that there should be the shift from the fragment support to the systematic policy from the perspective of the state program. And with this, we can move to the last slide. And how do we see that, and what kind of support should be provided? It has to be divided in three parts. The first one is emergency support. It has to consist of the psychological, medical support, and it has to be provided immediately after release to cover the basic needs. Midterm rehabilitation. It has to be happening in bed, and there should be rehabilitation, psychosocial support, and case management support. And this stage has to be provided, and also long-term rehabilitation, because majority of the people who return from the Russian captivity, the consequences might be reaching people after many years, because people went through tortures, and that is not something that can be easily forgotten. But unfortunately, there are the cases when people without sufficient support are dying after captivity. They are dying after a few months, half year, because they do not have good rehabilitation. First of all, because they were tortured and they faced severe maltreatment, and they have to get proper support from the state. Unfortunately, not all of them can get it, and the final solution has to be systematic. So with this, Ms. Ksenia, could you share your experience, please? I think we have to talk here not about the lack of rehabilitation, physical or psychological, because that is not the correct thing to say, considering what is happening in the country. Rehabilitation is a flagman project in our state, and I personally know in the teams and the number of the rehabilitation centers which work really, really professionally on the highest level. In the same way, we developed the system of the psychological support system, and one of the additional factors which makes it good, that is inpatient hospitals, which we have in the hospital complex, and we have more than 200 of them. And Lisova Polyana is a part of the preparation of the experts who have to work with veterans and people who were released from captivity. But the thing is that these assistants do not reach these people. And we are not talking about some specific location, about place of residence. We have absolutely clear, big space of medical space. You can go to the hospital, or you can do it yourself, or you can do it through the family doctor if he or she is available. If you have it after social services or Center for the Social Services Provision helped you to get one. And sometimes people cannot get this assistance due to lack of the clear referral mechanism, and second of all, because of the specifics of because work in the rehabilitation centers, psychological ones, requires work with body, and body remembers everything which one learned in captivity, and it's hard to get it. And this preach of case management and high quality, very well prepared social assistant, because we have the place where we can refer the person. We have the system of psychological rehabilitation. Indeed, we can say that there are gaps, they will always exist, but there is a place where one could go and get assistance. But what can we do in order for this person to get to the place where he or she can get assistance? That is a key message. And lack of the timely support, not the lack of the support, but the fact that people do not go to get this assistance. They get psychosomatization, and that is a result of the early deaths and severe diseases, and that is a big problem. Thank you, Ksenia. Considering what I've heard, we clearly see that we need two roads. The first one is for the people who are released in the framework of the official returns, and the second one is for those who come themselves. And before I will pass the floor to Daniil and Olena to finalize this discussion, in your opinion, do we have enough medical protocols in order for the doctor, when one comes and says that, okay, he or she has undergone captivity? Do we have enough instructions for the doctors in order to redirect the person to where he or she needs to go, considering the experience one could have undergone? Ms. Ksenia? Well, in the medical aspect, I think we shouldn't be talking about some specifics. Even doctor and even psychologist can become a case manager, because when you work with these kind of people, you shouldn't be working you shouldn't narrow down your work. Only if you get access to this kind of information, any kind of specialist who works with this person, he or she should has the map of referrals, especially when it comes to the people who were released from captivity, of course. Not every specialist has this kind of map. Of course, it is more typical for the services, social services, or center of provision of social services, if these kind of people go to these kind of centers. And therefore, these kind of protocols are important for all helping professions, no matter where they work, medical, legal assistance, or whatever. And we have to provide the information. So, for example, if the person came to the specialist and this person is already here and you have access to this person, please understand me correctly with this word access, you have to provide everything this person can get. Thank you very much, Daniil. I know that we were talking about this comprehensive approach and the possibility for the person to get the needed, so to say, checkups. We're talking about medical assistance. So could you share your opinion, please? Well, speaking of the medical assistance, which people undergo even after the exchanges which they get in the hospitals, 1 year of observations showed that there is a standardization. If person does not complain, well, maybe we do not need to study that. We will do that if it is mandatory. Blood analysis or blood tests, or I don't remember the rest of the mandatory ones, or if there are any. But if the person complains on the urinary system or the heart system, the person doesn't complain, okay, everything's fine. But 1 month after, this person has a heart attack. Why? Because nobody has checked it. And we are talking about the comprehensive medical checkups. If servicemen have a mandatory medical checkup, and the serviceman cannot refuse from undergoing one. And considering the fact that former captives, so the civilians, nobody can force this person to undergo this medical checkup. So check everything you need and refuse only when person says, I do not want to have this check. When this person makes the conscious decision not to undertake these or the other medical texts. And I think that we have to make a step back. So Fortis, in physics there is an experience for the children. So you put books on each other in some specific way and they do not fall. So if you cover some gaps, you have to do that comprehensively. Because if you remove one stick, one book, it falls down. If we will give good psychological assistance, good medicine, but at the same time this person, for example, as a former coal miner in the country where his profession is not needed anymore, this person is going to die poor, because this person will not be able to recover. He will be back to the hole from where psychologists get him out. And we shouldn't remove the context. We have to support everything comprehensively in order to support all the needs. We have to return the person to the state which the person had before the war, at least as close as possible. Thank you very much, Daniil. That is very inspiring, but on the other hand, it is very life experience, because a human being is very comprehensive being, and therefore I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Olena in order for you to share your dimension, for example, the length of the assistance of the support. Sometimes it takes more than 1 month, or maybe there is no specific time. We can say that like half a year is enough. And also about this human-centric approach we mentioned when we prepared to this conference, please. I would mention that with some of the people who we talked to, we're still in touch. And one person has a mental breakout. We have psychologists breakdown. Those are who are in Kyiv, and they can come in person, and those who are far away, they can contact us for the online consultation. What else? And that is something what Daniil was doing. We were trying to have the comprehensive approach, starting from the employment issues and training through the job centers, and we were doing that together. And then together with the Office of the Prosecutor General, we were trying to support them. So if there were any kind of issues, we were calling our colleagues from the regions, we talked to them, we were trying to help these people. And I can say that we have selective experience, because that was in the framework of one center. And the people who were entering the center through Lisova, Polyana, and they were the cases when people were coming themselves, and we still have this kind of experience. We are still learning since 2024. Ms. Ksenia has more experience in this case, and by the way, they were training us, and they trained us really well on these trainings. So they gave us understanding what kind of people are that and how to treat them, and therefore we move forward. But we need to apply human-centric approach. So human being has to be in the center. His or her needs, his or her life, and the services we can provide. And if we can provide some services, we have to do that comprehensively. We had an experience, and I really liked it. We had a group of the released women who were in prison, and when they were released, the head of our organization, he had an agreement with super luxurious salon, and he have all included manicure, pedicure, hair treatment, basic treatment, and after that, we did with them what Daniil said. We drank some coffee, we went to McDonald's, and for them, that was a kind of, a big event. Because before they have never been in McDonald's and said, like, how to order all of it. And we did it with them, and step by step, after they left us, we understood that they are already living, they understood how this worked like. And when they were coming to job centers, they were saying like, take D and open D, and said, no, it doesn't work this way. We take the phone together, we open D, and we explain what D is. And slowly but surely, we learned. And as far as I understand, these people understood that we can help, and we continue moving forward. And we have the positive cases when a woman, after release, she gave birth to the child. And we probably were waiting for this child with her father and with her. And now we're in touch. And we have lots of positive things happening. And we have negative cases as well. But it seems to me that gradually we are getting more and more experienced. Thank you very much, Ms. Olena, for this experience of humanity. I think that even through the screen we can feel how much sincerity we have here and demonstration of that is happening from human-centric approach. I know that we are over the time on this press conference, but on the other hand, it seems to me that all of these things which were mentioned here were very important to hear, and we had to give the opportunity to these people to express. The main idea of what we are talking about is the fact that every human being is a human with its own dignity. And if we do not forget it, if we consider human dignity, we can develop the system taking into account this basic milestone. I don't know whether we have time for the Q&A session in the framework of the press conference. We would definitely have it in the framework of the discussion, but considering the fact that we have the general time, I will take the time and I will allow to ask one or two short questions if you have them, if you want them to be asked during the press conference. And if not, you will be able to ask them in the framework of the discussion. We'll have more time, but please, if you are willing to clarify something or ask something while we have all the speakers in, please, you can do that. I don't know if the mic is working. Greetings, my name is Andreyev. I'm a journalist of Ukrainian Radio, and I wanted to ask, I recently was on the event where the coalition on the return from captivity was discussed. Do you think it will be useful, and did you join this initiative, or you see maybe other ways to implement all of this? Okay, I will answer because I'm the secretary and the commissioner of this commission. But all in all, everyone who will be willing to participate, well, in our opinion, that is about the single one-stop shop, because this coordination headquarters does it. The Ministry of Development is in charge of the meetings. Different agency structures are in charge of it, and it is very unorganized, very messy, and not all of the doors are opened when you knock. So I cannot express opinion of everyone. In my opinion, that will be a good change if we imagine that this agency will be established in some time, for example, this year. That would have been really great, a very good change, and it seems to me that it would have resolved the problems we have so far. And these issues could have been resolved at one way. Does anyone want to add something? Okay. Thank you very much. I promised 2 short questions. Do we have the second question? Okay, so with this, we would like to thank all the participants for your attention. I would like to thank all our speakers, and I'd like to mention that the research we prepared, we worked on it during 1 year. It would have been impossible without the European Union, the support which was provided by the European Fund for Democracy, and all the thoughts mentioned here, the thoughts in our research, they reflect only the position of Civis Fortis and not reflect the position of the European Union or the European Fund for Democracy. We have 15 minutes break, and you can have your coffee downstairs on the left. And after that, we are waiting for you at 10 minutes to 10 to 4.
Що, готові починати, як ти думаєш? Чи продовжувати точніше? Добре, будемо тоді продовжувати. Ще раз вітання всім, хто вже був, вітання тим.
About the research. We spent a year working on this research, and we're going to focus on 3 issues which we have chosen. Case management in one window, support of civil prisoners which were released on their own, and rehabilitation as a state policy strategic system of the country. In addition to the speakers we had before, we have 2 more people that join us. They're going to join our discussion. Yulia Ksenia, she's a specialist of Coordination Center of Support of Prisoners and Witnesses of General Prosecutor's Office. And another lady from Institute of Social Studies. She's going to join us online. And she will...
Перепрошую, я до вас трошки зі спини сиджу.
And Svetlana is going to, she knows our study, she knows our research, and she was a part of our research, and she's going to comment this study and will provide her own opinion. Now, this part of the meeting is not going to be moderated as it was during the first part of our meeting, so we are going to be flexible. You are welcome to express your opinions. We are going to have recording of this meeting. You are going to have minutes of this discussion. And we are going to move on from one question to another.
Мені як модераторки, можливо, буде лише прохання намагатися не виходити надто
Not to go beyond the issues that we are discussing, because all these issues are interconnected, and we will try to finish by 5 p.m. Now, if we are going to have an air alert, we will assess what type of alert it is, and we will act accordingly. If it's going to be a serious threat, we will move down to the shelter. Now, I suggest that we begin our discussion with the first question of case management. How we can provide this open window to those people that return from the captivity, what we can do to make sure that we help this person from bureaucracy, a formal burden, and how we're going to use a person-centered approach. How we can provide spectrum of services, and I will pass, the microphone is open. If you have questions, just raise your hand, and if you want to express an opinion or if you want to ask a question. I will be first to ask, and one of the first reasons why we are here and why we conduct this study in the first place, because first of all, we understand that if a person comes to our support, it's not just one problem, but it's the whole infrastructure which is involved and needs. And as organization that has its own vision, we have our individual protocols and protocols of support, and we also cooperate with partners. We interact with all bodies that help us with support after official release. We get the request first for support of the people that come back, and we understand, this is how we understand that we have to, on one hand, we have a challenge in front of us now, and it's going to last for some time, so we have to organize this network of support, and all partners have to understand what type of support exactly they can provide, and we also understand that a person needs to be supported, and this is why we have to sort of provide a guarantee for this person that it's not going to be that she's or he is not going to be left alone without any support. So a year ago, 2 years ago, it would be nice to do a sociological study in the beginning for the people that we support, our beneficiaries, and we have to discuss with our partners and sort of develop a package of services which would become a basis for analytical report, would have a roadmap and creation of state program for support. This is how we see it, and this is very logical. On the other hand, as Daniil said here and Olena, everything has to take place comprehensively. It has to be a comprehensive approach, and colleagues were perfectly correct when they said that in the center there's a person and the services are around this person. This is what a person-centered approach is all about, and it's indicated in a white book, and it should be in our roadmap as well. And once again, I want to thank dear colleagues that you stayed for the second part, and I want to pass floor to other people in this room who probably already have answers to these questions that we raised. What exactly we have to do to make sure that our state program is created, and what we can do to be more effective in regions. I see a colleague from a coordination center, Julia. Julia, I would like to pass floor to you because you are working with regions, and this experience is very important for us. Please tell us about your work and what recommendations you have, how we can extrapolate your experience on into a state program that you want to create so badly. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for invitation, and I would like to the person which is released from captivity from the very beginning, this person has its status. She or he is a part and a victim of criminal proceeding due to on the basis of war crime, 48 article of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, and this is how. If for the state, it is very important to state what has happened to you. As of today, we have 225,000 officially registered cases of war crimes, and over 4,000 cases are connected to illegal detention and deprivation of liberty. Coordination Center was created due to the directive or decree of EU on war crimes, but it happened so that it was created when we have this war aggression against Ukraine.
Більшість наших бенефіціарів, і ми здійснюємо підтримку бенефіціарів.
Most of our beneficiaries that we support, they are victims of war crimes. Among them, as of today, in regional centers, we have 438 civil persons which were deprived of their liberty, civil prisoners. Out of them, the predominant part are the people that returned from the imprisonment on their own, and unfortunately not too many of them that we have now. And if we compare the procedures, exchange procedure, it is those procedures are better described and better explained to people that returned in the result of official exchange. And here we have our first problem. How can we identify these people? those persons. Sometimes they self-refer due to self-referral, but we also, those people were referred to us, and the first victims we were referred by the prosecutors and investigators. So if a person
звернутися до координаційного центру, а пізніше вже до відділів підтримки. Зараз вони створені.
So we plan to establish this kind of offices, and in this way people can refer to us, and we have the practice of working with these kind of people. And indeed, a big number of these people, majority of them, that are people who left not themselves alone, but the people who survived the detention due to occupation of the territories, and they have contacted us after the occupation. And we accept these people. We accept referrals from the Office of the Prosecutor General, and very big support for us to identify these people were the organizations, the communities of the civilians after captivity, and also NGOs pass us over the information. Of course, everything happens with the consent of the people. If one doesn't want to be supported, then nobody will force this person to do so, and these data will not be transferred to us. And this partnership is very valuable, and it develops with these cousin Jews, because the first informing happens when the first informing comes from, according to the principle, equal to equal. Simply speaking, we have the word of mouth. The first one who got the assistance, that is a person who will tell the others that you will get some real support here, not a made-up, not just papers and number and documents. You will have case management. And that is how it worked. We had to help the people in criminal proceedings. So because the criminal proceeding is traumatic, it's already, and it is victimizing, and repeating it once again and again, well, it doesn't work like that. It happens only once. For the people, it's quite often the reason why one doesn't want to go to the law enforcement authorities. But due to gaps in different mechanisms, so we are doing referrals, and we are developing this network of referral network. When we can find the people who are providing the real assistance, and where there is no real assistance, and this way we cooperate with everyone, but there are some certain contacts which unfortunately disappear because they are not able to provide real assistance. But we are always glad to hear the new stakeholders, the ones which can actually help. So after coordination headquarters, we started to cooperate with Polyana, and we tried it ourselves. And we now have lots of practices we worked on, and after opening regional offices, we were able to give our vision, to give our way of support to our regional colleagues. And now I'd like to discuss the experience we had in Kharkiv Oblast. It was quite a vivid one. It was the most vivid one, the outstanding one, even though I cannot say that the other regions are less successful, because everyone has successes with their own approaches. But there are the cases where we have more civilians after captivity. Chernihiv Oblast, Kharkiv Oblast, in Chernihiv Oblast, we also have in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast the office. But let's talk about Kharkiv Oblast, not to waste our time. Kharkivsky branch of support, we have organizations of civilians in captivity, and it received information from the prosecutors, investigative prosecutors, and lots of people who refer to them. They have 81 people, and they support this kind of people. Only 4 of them they were returned with the official exchange program, and the rest of them, they were self-released. So how it happened in this way? So Kharkiv initiated the meeting where they developed their map of referral. So each department of the oblast has identified the person who will be responsible for these people. And if we had referral regarding rehabilitation, in this case, the head of the department, so first of all, coordinator, has contacted the person in the department who organized it after one day, and we had the name of the institution where this person has to go, and therefore the person got the instructions where to go. It's also we shouldn't underestimate the civil sector. We are tracking down the programs. We are working with all the funds of Andreyev, Pozmishka, Right for Justice, and we are checking whether the program they have are relevant and active, and whether our civilians after captivity, they meet the criteria. Besides that, we cooperate with and we identify the special statuses. We refer for the free legal assistance, also on the level of the city administration, oblast administration, centers of BPD. We have these referrals, they happen quite fast because we have the people who are responsible for that. People who were affected by human trafficking. In short period, we have 41 persons who received status, and this person was registered quite fast because we had the people who were responsible for that, and we were able to do that fast. Besides that, we identified the status of the child of war. We also have rehabilitation. We were talking about medical rehabilitation. In Kharkiv Oblast, we have well-coordinated support. Through medical, we had some specific medical support where we have to identify that was a medical test where we had to identify the consequences of the tortures. So the special medical check, and it happened 3 years after the tortures. And we had 8 families who have undergone the treatment in Karpathy Mountains, and that was from the NGOs. But they got it because of the medical prescriptions, because they were civilians in captivity. Besides that, we have very good experience in Chernihiv Oblast, and also very good experience in Luhansk Oblast, which provides housing, and that is a very rare case that we can achieve these kind of results. And that is experience, so we have maybe not very typical for us, but maybe it's just something new, but nevertheless. So what do I suggest with this? Considering my experience and our experience of our colleagues in the regions, I think that we have to say that we got an agreement. Wherever the person goes, everyone who is a part of the system, we get the consent from the person, and everyone is informed that this person exists, that we can see these people, that we identify this person, that it's not in the shadow anymore. Whether this person will come to us, that is a question. But nevertheless, this person has opportunities. This person knows where to go to ask for different things. When it comes to criminal proceedings, quite often, I think that nobody would ever think that we will be needed so much. Because quite often, people who is the part of the criminal proceeding, this person can confirm it with the extract from this unified register. So the application of the person, that this person exists and we didn't lose it. It goes through this part of the criminal proceeding. In this way, we have the biggest database of the civilians after captivity. Another problem we identified is that majority are the people who went through tortures after the occupation. We identify them after the occupation. Before that, and until now, they do not understand that they are not just affected because the village was occupied, but that they faced crimes. And they could have received this kind of support, and only now, after many years, we are able to identify them. And these kind of first support actions, we have to apply them also when working with these kind of people, because yes, indeed, we have them, because when we see the person, when this person is ready, it means that something is really wrong, and that we have to apply these principles not only to those who are released right now, because I know that it's important, but we also shouldn't lose the ones which were released before, not to lose our core force people. That's it from my side. Thank you very much, Ms. Yulia. In fact, you raised a range of questions which are on the verge of the legal qualification, provision of social guarantees. And in fact, in our report, we were also mentioning that how can we identify what is captivity, and then the status that it's civilian after captivity and many other things. But all in all, we are talking about the person who faced ill treatment, and no matter of the qualification, whether it is civilian after captivity, and that is something unknown to international humanitarian law, because civilians are not allowed to be captured according to IHL. No matter what is the legal status of this person has to obtain this basic support and the possibility to be heard and to get access to the provision of at least psychological, medical assistance and recovery of the rights in the legal framework. And before passing the floor, I'd like to ask you a few clarifying questions. I guess they are more technical ones. So you've mentioned, for example, a very important aspect, that is the possibility of re-traumatization during the interrogations. Maybe in the experience of your center and your colleagues had the experience of engagement of psychologists, or maybe other events which can make this traumatic experience milder when the person is undergoing interrogation. Indeed, there are our protocols. So we have foreseen engagement of psychologists. So we have interview with the person, and we are providing first psychological assistance, and we have less traumatizing practices of the interview when the person has not in typical interrogation, but the person feels comfortable. And also on the base of our coordination center, we have the rooms for the procedural interviews with a safe place where the person is not asked like tough questions. And also there is an opportunity to engage psychologists also during interrogation. So that is mandatory. That is mandatory in our practices. We coordinate with psychologists from with the state psychologists, and also psychologists from NGOs who have relevant experience and license, and they are the part of the process as well. Thank you very much, because that is also similar to what Ksenia said before about the preparation of the specialists who can be later engaged to the procedure, and Daniil has something to add to that. Yes, that is between the Office of the Facted and Evidences and the founder of Andreyev. So we have the project to engage psychologists, and this is a very good practice indeed, because psychologists who has already worked with these kind of people and know this person and know the problem this person faces can help to stabilize this person during investigative procedures. Yes, indeed, we have very good cooperation with the foundation of the family of Andreyev. Thank you very much for this remark, and it shows a positive result when we have coordination between different institutions. And also, the second thing I would like to clarify, Ms. Yulia, you mentioned the experience of Kharkiv, and only 4 out of 81, if I heard you correctly, were released in the framework of the official return exchange, and the rest were identified during the procedure of the occupation, or maybe in the other ways. Can you recap what is your general practice when one comes to you and this person returned from captivity outside of the official procedures? For you as a center, does it matter, and does the roadmap differs, or you help this person the same way to get the status of thing you do for the person who was returned in the framework of the official exchange? Or maybe there is some certain difference, because unfortunately we know that there are practices when people are fighting for these statuses for years and they cannot get this status. Well, I'd like to say that the difference probably exists because people are different. And it's not a matter of status, it's a matter of needs. The difference is that there are no documents, and also we do not have an impact on commission. We help to get the status, and that is the part of our services. We explain how to apply, we explain how to get the documents from the criminal proceeding, and also we refer these people for legal assistance if needed. Register, apply, the way everyone does. We also have refusals. We inform that people can get refused. We also understand that it's also a traumatization, but we work in the same legal framework and we have to follow the rules, and therefore we have to act accordingly. But the main thing is the person for us, not the status. Status is something that goes after. And yes, indeed, we help to get the status in the framework of the referral mechanism and help people with legal assistance. Indeed, we help to get what is realistic to get. We explain what can be obtained from the criminal proceeding. We are asking whether you added it as evidence. Do you have something with you? We're explaining the peculiarities of how commission works. So we explain how the dynamics, what is the dynamics in this commission, for the person to have the understanding that that is how we should act. But these people are informed about their rights. Thank you very much. I think that with this, from this point, we can expand our discussion further. We can definitely come back to those who can talk on the case management, the first question, and also to cover the next question, and this category of people who have less data in the beginning. That is what Yulia was talking about, maybe less documents, maybe some other facts which they can confirm about the way they return. So what should one do in this case? On the one hand, we understand that when we're talking about some certain cases, quite often it is a matter of pragmatic things. We can be talking about ideal, perfect system, but in the end of the day, there are people who do it for some certain money, or they are doing it out of their mandate or beyond their mandate. But it's kind of fighting the fire. We are responding, we are showing our best human values, but how should this system have worked? Let's imagine that at one point everyone who volunteers and do it outside of their mandate, and they say okay, I'm going to do only what is written in my job instruction in the framework of my budget, and that's it, and I'm not going to get out of these limits. So how should this system have worked? The system of case management, for the people who return with some kind of confirmation, but first of all, for the people who do not have anything at all. But in our mind, we had the human-centric approach and respect, and we've heard it for many times. So the respect to the fact that it is a person who went through this experience. So how do we perceive it in this society? We have lots of experience accumulated in this room. What should this person get on the entrance, and how should it have developed in long-term period of rehabilitation? So we are going to cover all of this question. I do understand that it's quite a difficult, complicated task, but let's think about it. Who would like to be the first one? Please. Greetings, everyone. I hope that it will never happen, and all of us will burn out. That will be apocalypse, because that will be catastrophe, because you compared us with the firefighters, and I'm always using the same metaphor. We are the firefighters, and in fact, we have developed, by all of us who are in this room, we have huge expertise on all of these issues, and in fact, the state should have been present on this meeting. Some representative from the ministry should have been here to take down notes and to implement it, because in fact we found all the solutions needed. The only thing we need is to implement it. And in my opinion, the main problem is the fact that these chairs are empty, unfortunately. I mean, the chairs where we should have, the chairs where the state officials should have been. So why do I like Civis Fortis approach and Ms. Lyudmila's approach? That is the fact that they are very fundamental. You start to develop this tower from the very ground. This analytics is very strong grounds. And once again, ground is something that we lack as a state. We lack systematic approach and the vision. We do not have this the state policy, and what should we do, not with just people, but with the problem. Because the problem of civilians in captivity is much larger than a few thousand people staying in captivity. It's beyond this. And in commission, we discussed here is not the reason, it's just one of the symptoms of lack of this policy, because in fact, during this commission, we are able to confirm obvious things. We say that people suffered from tortures. And Russian Federation left the Convention on Prohibition of Restriction of Tortures. And we are not, we say that civilian was affected due to exploitation. And just remember that Criminal Procedural Code of the Russian Federation, it is written, Article 106, where it is said that a prisoner, because they consider us prisoners, is obliged to work were identified by the administration of the prison. So what else should we confirm? But people got refusals, and when the state labor exploitment. But all you need to see is just the criminal procedural code of the Russian Federation. And if the state will start doing all of these, because the capacity of the state is much bigger than the ones we have, because we are just few people who are united by these firehose I have, and people who strive for justice. And the state is a mechanism which in fact should have done all of it instead of us, and should have overcame it instead of us. Let me introduce briefly Konstantin. He has two roles here. I was just I checked that there are people who do not know Konstantin. He's a person who has returned from captivity, where he stayed for 7.5 years. And now Konstantin is the head of NGO Civilians in Captivity, and he has two roles. And the person is talking not just from the perspective of the experience of the support of civilians after captivity, but from his own experience of staying in captivity. But if you don't mind, maybe I would like to pass the floor to Anna, who's with us today. Anna knows that she was not preparing the speech, but that is the person who is very important here. Anna returned from captivity herself, and only after 1.5 years she was able to get status of the person who was affected from the Russian aggression. Anna, could you share your experience from the perspective of what were the challenges to obtain this status? Because on the one hand, our discussion is around the fact that some mechanisms already exist, but on the other hand, we still have people like you who have to confirm for years that you deserve for the attention of the state, that you deserve to get this difficult status.
Indeed, I had 7 years. I was in captivity for 7 years. Yes, I was tortured. My teeth were broken out. I tried to reach some justice. I tried to get a status. 3 times I was denied to receive status. And the second time I applied, the first time, the second time I was denied again and again. I was not even sure, I didn't even believe any longer that I would be able to receive this status. Even though the Commission didn't inform me of anything. The Commission did nothing for me. They did not even inform me that I got the status. They really didn't care. That's how I felt. I'm the mother of Anna. We were in Kyiv for 3 months, and we had to apply and apply again and again for that status, and they just didn't care. From December till March, we tried. It was the final time, December to March, that we finally got the status. First, the Commission said that we didn't have all necessary documents, and I had to go through the courts, hearings, and the answers of Maruzova. I got Moskalkova is another name. They were saying that we were not Russian citizens, so that was still in occupied territory, as I understand. Donetsk, occupied Donetsk Republic. And we also had this case when we didn't have all the documents. We were searched. Our father is a disabled person, but they didn't, so the searches were conducted by Russians, and they didn't find our Ukrainian documents. And so 1 year and 8 months we were doing everything we could in order to receive that status. Well, thank you for joining us today. I myself also, I want to say that I myself went through this experience, and what you tell us opens up another layer of problems. It's what our families have to go through in order to get the status, and we have many situations here. The situation you told us about when Anna was imprisoned, your mother, her mother, you took a lot of efforts to register Anna as missing, as imprisoned person. But there are also situations, there are other situations. Well, for example, a person can be in occupied territory and no one could even do anything on her behalf, on behalf of that person. And this is why I would like to expand our discussions to this comprehensiveness that I'm talking about, because we talked a lot about comprehensive approach, but another layer that I would like to add is this, and I wrote about that in the study. Konstantin said that Russia withdrew from the Convention of Torture. When we prepared the study and when we discussed international experience, the first view that we had to discuss was when we talk about legal obligations of Ukraine, we're not talking about international humanitarian law or criminal law, because this question is something that has to be decided within the country, irrespective of what the enemy is doing. So the obligations that Ukraine has to protect rights of people against torture, and under what circumstances these facts would not happen to a person that comes to us. So this layer of information is about the balance of where obligations of the country begin and where they end, obligations of the country, and how this has to work. Take into account that we not only have people after captivity, but also non-direct victims. And in this case, we are talking about family and relatives. Now, who wants to continue this discussion? Please raise your hand. Hello, Oleg, Coordination Headquarters. Oleg. I am probably the only representative of state bodies in this room, but I would like to say a few words about what we do as a state, as a country. And it happened that so many, we started think as our own initiatives. We communicated with Cabinet of Ministers about rehabilitation and reintegration of people who return from captivity. We involved representatives of Ministry of Health who who blocked this initiative. MOH blocked this initiative, but the state, under conditions of full-scale war, focuses mostly on war combat actions and finances that are necessary for combat actions. So the country needs lots of resources for combat actions, and this is why Information Headquarters became that platform which started to work on the mechanism and schemes of communication and coordination, also involvement of other stakeholders. I'm talking about experts and finances, because if we don't do this, no one will do this. So we pushed that initiative forward, and we have to begin from the very point when a person returns from captivity. And we understand that the person may have multiple problems. People come differently through different pathways, and those people, we need people with sufficient understanding, peer-to-peer, to work on a peer-to-peer level. And now we are discussing a number of initiatives that people who pass through those experiences, we have to offer our support to people right at the point when the person returns from the imprisonment. We worked with many prisoners. We had representatives of Ministry of Health. We went to the hospitals to see their conditions. We asked them about their conditions. We offered them social support to make sure that we are ready to get this system working. But after those returns, with the problems that they have. We also, there were some problems that we had to monitor and take care of. But from the point of view of psychological support and reintegration, in the first place, military prisoners, they have a powerful mechanism working there. But it's a lot harder for civil prisoners. This is why I call on all of you. We are ready to search for those people. We are ready to collaborate and interact with the foundations, just like yours, before the state is growing in this system of support, comprehensive support. So what you do, what your foundation does, is very important. And I think that by common efforts, we will be able to make some practical steps in this direction. We will be able to meet those people, take them to hospitals, offer them all necessary support. Then also we have to offer employment for those people, and reintegration and employment. We worked with representatives of various countries. And we have Prague. I know that there are programs in other countries. And I have questions here, like temporary housing, other issues, other problems, to reintegrate the person back into society. This is why there should be comprehensiveness of service provision. I don't want to criticize any minister, not even Minister of Health, but unfortunately we are now at our coordination headquarters. We have now many issues with the Ministry of Health. Unfortunately, there are problems with identification and provision of medical care for those who return from imprisonment. And hopefully next year we are going to have a meeting, a working group on these very issues. The group is going to be headed by the deputy head of on human rights, Yuri Kovbasa. We prepared a strategy, a common strategy, as for the return of those prisoners, and we see only few cases of such prisoners. But in the future, we have to be ready to provide care to more people, and so we apply a lot of effort, and we have many problems, many questions, but we already done certain things, and we are ready to share our own experience. And also we're going to need more donor funds from donors to make sure that we function better and more effectively. A brief comment. Now, when Russia returns our people back, the system is not ready to take care of those people. Just imagine, just hypothetically, that tomorrow something is going to happen and all our prisoners are going to come back to our country. Are you ready for that? 16,000. Can you imagine this? 16,000 people returned from Russian imprisonment. What are we going to do? How we are going to meet those people, and how are we going to help those people? I thank you very much for the work that you do. I really hope that we are going to collaborate further. But I would really also like to come back to what Olena and Ksenia were saying, because your experience, your common experience, coordination center, coordination headquarters, social protection and rehabilitation, are those centers, those 4 centers that are all about support that is provided to people that return. But how is it supposed to work, especially when we talk about system and about large, how are we going to work in a situation when we have a lot more people than we have now? Now, Olena and Ksenia is probably going to think about this, but we had 2 hands up, and to to make sure that we follow our logic. Let's listen to the questions or comments what we had there. I am Olena. I'm a journalist. Free radio. The radio is from the Donetsk region. It's that very region. Very few prisoners come back. I just want to add my radio freedom. And the state, I want to say that the state does very little. But at times, civil organizations organize the work much better than the country. That's what we observe in the Donetsk region, because indeed organizations work so well that the state forgets to do their part. I was talking to a person from military administration in Kramatorsk, and they were saying that they have to include to their problems civil prisoners because that became critical, and the paper is not ready. They do not know what to do with those people. And as I was explained, at least 150,000 hryvnias are supposed to be provided to each person for the basic needs like clothes, hygienic goods. And at the moment we are working with just 2 such people. We have very few people. And for example, we have a case of a woman who lost her kid. Her kid was stolen by Russia. And as I understand, the state tries to do something. And we have local programs in the Donetsk region. It's not just in Kramatorsk. And communities have different finances. Some communities have more money, some have less money, but we should all follow one principle. We should provide people a typical similar amount of support. So for me, the problem that I see is that a person really has to prove that she or he was in prison because the program already exists, and there's a lump of money allocated for those people. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have another example of local. For example, we talked about Chernihiv and Kharkiv, and this is a separate legal issue. I'm talking about centralized self-organization of communities and possibilities, economic possibilities, and where they're located and how many of them, how available they are, where located geographically. But this is one of the positive experiences that we really have to take into account. And another comment to this, dear colleagues, thank you, first of all, very much for the invitation. I am the head of the project with very long name. We work with human rights of people that suffered from Russian aggression. And it's too bad that the representative of the government left us, because I really wanted to talk to him more. And he left. But I want to please join working groups at the ministries that take place, and we are ready to provide any type of support to ministers, to experts, because if we have to be constructive. Yes, we have problems, but not everything is bad, and there are possibilities, there are opportunities, and we can work with the details. And now, as for the system, I see that we have an elephant in the room. We all see this elephant in the room, but someone has to start talking about this elephant, because this one single window. Who is supposed to be responsible on the part of the government, of the state? On my part, I would like to say that the EU will support any minister. So we work with different ministers. We just have to develop a comprehensive and clear program. We are hoping that we will work with newly created ministries if they are going to have working groups, public hearings. We are going to join those and we will provide all necessary support. But at the moment, we have this situation as for civil civil prisoners. We try to include them in the groups, into our work from various sides, and when we developed guidelines and information pamphlets, because not all people require that support. Some people need that, some don't. And there are different sources of support, and this is why we try to spread the information to all possible partners, actors, and all representatives. So we work with the office of Mr. Brano and Lubinet, and we pay a lot of attention to the fact that civil persons that returned from imprisonment and their families, and I thank you that you emphasized this part, families. We work with Ministry of Social Policy, and I know that most of you organizations which are present here, they are part of the work. Please share your propositions, for example, about inclusion of the families or relatives of the victims to the list of those groups and categories which are going to receive social services. So what I suggest is let's work together. That's my suggestion. That let's work on different parts of this problem. We have starting from the booklets, brochures, and finishing with the support that we can provide all your ideas in order to make your life and your work a little bit easier.
Наталя, дуже дякуємо і дякуємо за такі.
Natalia, thank you very much for this practical information. And now let's talk about what was mentioned by Lyudmila and speaking, and that will be close to the final stage of our discussion. So Natalia has mentioned the importance of structurization. Different people can understand information from different perspectives. So today in this room we have example when people sit there for 7 even, and now people even during 2 years, lots of thinking changing the digital world. So it is important to inform, but when you leave, it's just the beginning of the way. For the person, it's the end of the tortures, of the direct tortures. And when we are talking about obtaining assistance from the state, that is the entrance point. That is the very beginning. And even if the person in some certain way was able to confirm that he or she was in captivity, then there is a long-lasting work with the people. And with this, we return to Miss Olena and Miss Ksenia. You have a vast experience, even though I understand that you had it at different points of time, but it's similar when it comes to the content. So we were talking about good local practices. We have good examples of interaction, but your vision, comprehensive vision. So what should have been the part of the state comprehensive program of rehabilitation, and how should it work? I do understand that it's a difficult question, and you are not a magician to find the magic pill. So considering the experience you have, what could you advise? Nobody. You're asking for the roadmap, but nobody can suggest it right now. I'm joking, of course. But, there are the main services: social, medical service, legal service, maybe psychological service, and the places where one can come. From the medical perspective, from the man from the coordination center, he made some pressure on the Ministry of Healthcare, but actually we talked with the Ministry of Healthcare that, yeah, indeed, we are seeing that, for example, if lots of people return at once and they can travel all around the country, and that's not going to be just Kyiv or some other city. The idea was that we have to identify that, for example, each oblast hospital in each oblast knows that people can come, and the so why it should be oblast hospital? Because you have the spectrum of services and different specialists. And in the hospital there should be the team. So we cannot prepare just all the doctors, all psychologists in the country and all social workers. It's impossible. That is not feasible. And each of these 4 points, doctors, has to support. So, for example, that can be the group of people. There should be a nurse and someone from the administration of the hospital who knows, who understands how it works, and this person in this group, they have to have the referral map for their oblast. When it comes to legal issues, they also have the map of referral. Social services also have to have the map of referral, and each oblast has to have different referral maps, and we have to divide it at least by oblast to make at least some kind of borders of these services. For example, if one is in Poltavska Oblast, this person has to get assisted in Poltavska Oblast. And Poltavska Oblast, on the level of military administrations, in military administration, there is a person which can be the focal point for the person who returned from captivity. So maybe that can be the representative in the military administration, maybe not military administration, but in the cities, state city administration. And this focal point can provide information on all directions, and not to all of the hospitals, but to one of the hospital where doctors will undergo the trainings on trauma-sensitive communication. Well, I don't know, it's a very complicated issue, and we are thinking about different ways how to resolve it and how to make it work like a clock, like a Swiss clock in the States. It's very difficult. Would you like to add something? Yes. So, we have Article 64. Some issues of the provision of the administrative services. In each Ramada, we have social manager, and on the entrance, when one is coming to the center of the provision of administrative services and the person puts a tick that he or she needs assistance, then the social worker, if it is a difficult, complicated case, this person can gather the multidisciplinary team, and we are the part of this team, so it can consist of medical workers, education, representatives of the educational sector, social protection, so all structural divisions and NGOs. And after that, we describe the support plan, and we are working on that. From time to time, we do monitoring. After January, this resolution was adopted, and we started using it. So as for our center, we continue cooperating with Lisova, Polyana, and it's easier for us to do it in this way, because the ones who come to us, they are typically released in the framework of the exchanges, and there is the needed package of the documents. And if there will be requests from the individuals, then it is Resolution 64. I think that on the level of Armadas, it will work out. And the only thing we need is to teach these managers of social communities on how to work with this group of people, because work with different group of people, but here we need somehow different approach. And also the people have to understand that they can apply. So I can see a hand. I will pass the floor to you. And we are talking, and when case manager is, the one has to reside at the place. So if the person resides in Hromada of Obolonsky Hromada, then it has to be resolved there. If this person is in Lisova Polyana, then we think where we can refer this person to. Thank you very much. We also had a hand raised. Greetings. I do not want to share reflections, but I want to share our experience, media initiative on human rights. When we had a big exchange, 60 people were released. And Ms. Irina Vereshchuk has came to our organization in order to get the help with monitoring of the situation. At that point, we have formed special questionnaires in order to understand what are the needs of the people. And we witnessed the people were met on the 15th, and we went there on the 15th, and we worked with these people who were released. We worked on the 15th and 18th. And when we worked in Chernivtska hospital, we were surprised with what was happening there. And with us, there were the workers of the National Informational Bureau, and it was messy. From our side, there were lots of questions regarding this organization, but we hope, and we later found out that during the next releases, these procedures were, there were less people and they were better organized. Besides that, I support the words of Mr. Slobodyanek, because he said that he has critics regarding the work of the Ministry of Healthcare. The people were brought to Chernivtska hospital, but we came there on the second day and they had no procedures at all. And when Irina Vereshchuk was informed about that, she gave the order to bring them to Kyiv, and then Chernivtska hospital started doing something. They made some tests in order to pass at least some documents to Kyiv hospital. And then Kyiv hospitals were treating these people as like the first test, the first days. Indeed, we have identified huge issues. Majority of the problems were resolved manually. Thanks to Ms. Irina Vereshchuk, people were given some clothes, some footwear which of the wrong sizes, and it was August. That was one bag of footwear and clothes, and there is an autumn ahead, and you have to resolve this issue somehow. So lots of problems, actually. That were people who were until 2022 in captivity. That were people who stayed in captivity for a long period of time. They had a need to understand what is going on, what is happening in the country. For many of them, smartphones were a big surprise. They have never seen them. They have never used this kind of phones, and they have never used Dia app, of course. And we have informed about these problems, and there were a few concerns regarding the people who returned from detention, and actually, that were people from Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast. And these problems and the problems went beyond that. Different Hromadas in Donetsk Oblast and Luhansk Oblast, they have treated people in different ways. Luhansk Oblast Council, state administration has allocated some funds and provided housing, and Donetsk Oblast didn't do that. And until now, people have questions. Why this way? I'd actually have the same question. So today you mentioned Kharkivska experience and experience of Kramatorsk, but the Luhansk Oblast now majority of Donetsk Oblast is occupied. And as far as I see, there is no way to get money to support people. But nevertheless, we have one country, a single country. Why do we rely financing on them? Yes, but where do they get funds? My objective is to show that we have one country, the same country, and therefore each oblast has to undertake this responsibility and to resolve the problem of all people who return from captivity, no matter where these people are originally from. Thank you very much. I can see we have a hand raised, but with this, I would like to remind you that unfortunately, we are out of our time, but we started a bit later, and our press conference took a bit longer, and therefore, let's take 5 to 7 minutes to finalize our meeting before I pass the floor to Svetlana Sherbyn, which I announced in the beginning, maximum 2-3 small remarks or comments, and we will start the closing remarks of this meeting. Well, in my opinion, everything we've heard right now confirms my statement in the beginning. There is no single structure. Because even if we are talking about the support from Hromadas, okay, but if we compare Hromadas of Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, Donetsk is 150,000, even though it's also a doubt, a big doubt. So if we're talking about Luhansk Oblast, there are 2 million per person. So we can see discrimination depending on the place of origin, which is not good. If we're talking about medical issues, that is something that was mentioned by Ms. Lydia. They occur even nowadays, after 1 year. And now when we come to the people released from the hospital, and we see that they get nothing. And even during 21 days, they are not in the hospital. They are let go even earlier than 21 days. And in my opinion, and that is also the opinion of some of my colleagues, and that is something that was mentioned here, we mentioned the work of this agency, the only solution which can help to overcome these problems, systematic approach, that is the unified authority which will be in charge of that. Because with all due respect to the prosecution, to the Ministry of Social Policy, none of these organizations is something which has the mandate to do this kind of work, and it shouldn't be doing all of this if we're talking about the Ministry of Social Policy, because support after captivity is something that is broader than the issue of the social support. It's much broader. Thank you, Konstantin. You have underlined that there is a need for a structure, and this unified structure is one of the ways how everything is going to develop. So with this, we can give the floor to a few more people who would like to express their opinions, please. That can be the comment regarding any of the questions we covered today. Yes, please. Very briefly, I would like to talk more, of course, but I do understand that we are out of time. And we're out of time already. I'm case manager of the Charity Foundation's Right for Justice, and I'm the member of this project, and we cooperate with people released from captivity. Our project during 5 months is already 5 months, and we had experience with the last releases. And very briefly, I'd like to give a feedback regarding relocated Hromadas and their budgets. I know for sure that there is a positive experience of Mariupolska relocated Hromada. Mariupol, that is one of the latest cases. They gave very strong support, financial support, and they are going to provide housing in the dormitories, and also Dobropilska Gромada. That is just that pop up in my memory. And also I have, there are issues regarding medical component. Well, I will try to be brief about that. In the framework of the monitoring I conducted, that is kind of secondary support, rehabilitation, medical rehabilitation, not psychological, but medical rehabilitation. When we identify the needs after we reissue the documents and the psychological rehabilitation in Lisova, Polyana, or the other facility, medical facility, which help the people after release and help them to adaptate. They require very strong, powerful medical support. And unfortunately, on the 30s, well, in the framework of the monitoring, which I conducted personally because I was looking for different options, different medical facilities where we could, so to say, place these people free of charge in order to have more, so to say, narrow but very good checks. That is something that they call therapeutic package. Of course, it takes a long time. It's a very complicated situation. As of the 30th of July, there was, let me check the name of the law. There was the law from the Ministry of Healthcare. There were the demands regarding not the classification, but criteria of hospitalization of individuals. And yes. So justification of for hospitalization. Yeah. So the head of one of the medical facilities, a medical director, I'm not going to mention names, he was complaining that it is an issue. These kind of therapeutic packages are not good for the hospital because the state program doesn't cover it such long period in the hospital. I'm not going to talk more about it because I can talk for a long time about it. Well, yeah, indeed, it's long. I'm doctor, and I'm not representative of the Ministry of Healthcare, and I do know what is hospitalization and that we cannot treat just everything. Medicine is a very special service. We have to treat person in the department where the need is. Therapeutic is a therapeutic package, and that is a checkup, and for example, that can be the general therapy, pulmonology, or anything else. But just checking is not enough. And lots of assistance people can get in the hospital. Staying in the hospital is not a good thing. It makes them they think that someone will help them. Someone will. This make person weaker because people do not want to do something themselves. Let's not give them this kind of magic pill. They will do one check or drink one pill, and after that, this person will stay for 21 days in the hospital. That is not a good approach. Of course, when there is a problem, for example, if there is an issue with veins, with stomach, with anything, you have to treat it. It's not the case when you just put a person in the hospital and you check just everything. Well, no, I'm talking about this package, but we also talked about the other checkups, also oncology and many other things, because they come to me as sick as me. And they say, like, what should I do next? Yes, I do understand. The family doctor has to do that. So that is a very difficult topic, and it is controversial, and quite often people complain about it, and it tries to help people, because sometimes people who do not need treatment, they stay in the hospitals for months, and it's not about putting people from release, but for people who are released from the hospital, it's not okay. It doesn't give them the capacity to. It doesn't give them the opportunity to feel that they can do something themselves. Oh, I see that we have a very acute question. I think that it matters what period are we talking about. Are we talking about the period when the person just returns, and that is a critical period? Or maybe we are talking about long-lasting rehabilitation. Of course, in this case, we have different situations and different protocols on hospitalization, on justification of the hospitalization, and so on and so forth. Dear friends, last call. Before I pass the floor to Ms. Svetlana, I do understand that there are lots of things you would like to discuss. I have millions of questions I would like to cover. But maybe someone who didn't take a floor, maybe someone who did and would like to add something, please, you have this kind of opportunity right now. So, if there are no comments, we will have a few more minutes. We'll be able to discuss after the official part. And with this, with my great pleasure, I'm passing the floor to Ms. Svetlana, and I will change my seat. I would like to thank for you being with us online. I do know that it's very difficult when everyone is somewhere. So could you share your reflections regarding what we covered today from the perspective of the research and from your personal perspective, please? The floor is yours. Greetings, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for the opportunity to go through this document, to be the part of this event. And in my opinion, that is a case when research is something that you should not just present, but you have to discuss it. To discuss it with the people who work in this sphere and the people who would like to have an impact on the state policy regarding civilians returned from captivity. First of all, I would like to talk about the comprehensive approach, because the authors did not limit themselves on the analysis of legislation. They did not describe some separate issues which people face after return. In this research, we have legal analysis, court procedures, the experience of the people who return from captivity, state standards, and international experience. And in fact, we can see that there is research on the entire road of the person who returns from captivity. I think that is a very good thing, because the state can have we're talking about different mandate, different procedures, and for the person that is just one process, the process of return to normal life. The person might need recovery, reaching of the document. That is something we mentioned today: medical assistance, psychological assistance, housing, financial stabilization, legal assistance. And this research shows that indeed these problems and needs, they are not isolated. And after returning, quite often you need comprehensive approach. And therefore, in my opinion, the main value of this work which was presented today is that we see not just the fact that there is a problem. There is a white book with suggestions to the state authorities. For me, the general logics of this, the structure of these suggestions is quite understandable. We're talking not about the procedures, but about people and their needs. And first of all, that is the idea of case management. Case management, which we mentioned today a lot of times. After returning, person should not become the manager of its own interaction, his or her own interaction with the state. They should not think where to go first, what kind of procedures they have to go through, and how to get one document and in order to get another document. But at the same time, we are talking about not about the dependency of the person from the support system, but on the contrary, we are talking about the recovering human autonomy and to be able to make your own decisions and to return to normal life. And that is really important, because the consequences of the illegal detention and deprivation of their rights, it's something that is not over after 1 month of treatment. Some of the problems might recur after some time. Some problems might be something one can understand after a long time after the problem occurred. So the good system helps not only after you return, but also it has to be available every time when the need occurs. And that is the three-stage rehabilitation program which was presented today during the press conference part. And finally, I'd like to say that I consider white and green books not as the end of these the policy papers, not as the end of it, but it's a very good grounds for the next stages, for the next discussions. And we do not need to prove that there are problems. We do not need to prove what kind of problems exist, not to justify them, but instead we can discuss what amendment should we do the first, and what can be implemented right now. Where do we need some bylaws? Where do we need the intergovernmental discussion? Or where we need some additional resources? Meanwhile, I can say that we are not starting the work from scratch. Not before, not today. We had lots of examples of interaction, cooperation with experts, NGOs, the state, and we have to consider this experience. Not just to consider what can be changed, but what works and what gives results and what kind of best practices we can share. So thank you very much for this meeting, and I hope that we will be able to implement these changes and that we will have not that many obstacles on this way. Thank you very much, Ms. Svetlana, for this review of the research and the problems we covered. And of course, Civis Fortis is not the very first organization which started to study this problem. We are not saying that, and we are not saying that we are the only ones who work on that, or that our conclusions and recommendations are the only possible, the only correct one, and they have to be the grounds, and we have to go and start implementing them. Yes, Svetlana said it really good, that this research is another step in the part of the work in progress. And we reflect on what was happening. We create another platform to exchange best practices, to cover the problems and challenges, and to think how we can move forward. How it is better to unite our efforts, not to blame each other, not to criticize for everything possible. But I'm not saying that critics is bad. No. Critics is good, but our objective is to unite our efforts and to find solutions which can help us to balance this difficult situation which we have right now, because it's really very difficult, very complicated. And we've heard that there is an elephant in the room. We are talking about an authority which should have coordinated everything. And the word some is not very constructive. So we have to agree together and to define what kind of authority should it be. Is it the authority in the Ministry of Social Policy, which already has the system of the social support? Maybe it is not perfect, and there are reasons for that, but still something already exists. Maybe that is the authority which could have complemented what exists. Maybe there could have been another model, but at some point of time, the sooner the better, we have to start telling who is responsible, to find coordinators in order for these empty chairs Konstantin mentioned, in order to see someone sitting on these chairs, on those 4 pillars Lyudmila was mentioning. But I think that the most important thing is that there are lots of us, and we've heard about different sectors. We've heard state authorities, coordination headquarters, the Office of the Prosecutor General, the Ministry of Social Policy, doctors. So we are different people, civil society, and they are ready to work. And they are coming here not to blame each other, but they are looking for solutions, because the one who doesn't want to do something, they are blaming each other. The one who wants is looking for the opportunities. And I'm very glad that I have this opportunity to moderate such a wonderful discussion with such motivated people, and we are looking for this solution. I would like to thank all of you, and I would like to remind you that this research and this discussion wouldn't have been possible without the support which we got as organization, that is the support of the European Union, which was provided through the European Foundation for Democracy, and the thoughts we expressed today, and the thoughts in the research, they reflect our opinion, not the opinion of the European Union or the Fund of the European Fund for Democracy. And maybe Lyudmila would like to add something, some final remarks, please, or you can do that or not. Yes, I will. Of course, I would like to thank each of you who stayed with us till the end and expressed your opinions. And of course, on the next stage, we start developing the roadmap. A part of it is ready, and on the next stages, we will present it, and we invite you not just to join us in this process, which is not the right word to say. Let's do it together. We are ready to be the coordinator of this process. And of course, everything we did, your practices, our practices have to be the part of the roadmap we do together in order to have the state policy of the support, and everything that works now, it has to work on the highest scale, different from others, on all the levels. We would like to thank everyone who already does it and who is ready to continue doing it for the people who return from captivity. And of course, we would like this work not just to continue, but we want to be talking about some success stories on the next meetings and how it works on different levels. Thank you very much once again, and see you during the roadmap planning. Thank you very much.